let's talk about video game localization. These days, games are enjoyed around the world by many different nationalities. The trend is also towards more globalization, so localization is constantly becoming more and more important. In this video, I will go through what game localization is, what are the benefits, what are the downsides, and most importantly, should you localize your game? Hi, my name is Auro. I'm a solo indie game developer and I'm the creator of a game called Mortal Glory. On top of that, I also make these weekly YouTube videos sharing my experiences to help you with your own game dev journey. Now let's start with the topic. Video game localization, in simple terms, is the process of preparing your game to be playable and enjoyable for a player from another region or nationality. So for example, taking a game that is only available in English and adjusting it so that it is easily understandable and enjoyable for a Japanese player, or whatever nationality you want to target. Localization and translation are two terms that often get mixed up, so let's also quickly look at the difference between those. Translating is turning your text from one language to another. Simple. Localization, on the other hand, is a much broader subject, but again, in simple terms, it's about trying to make something understandable and enjoyable for another person in a different culture. This includes translation, but can also include things such as changing units of measurement, switching a joke to a more understandable one, or altogether removing some culturally sensitive subjects. But let's move on to some important questions you might have about localization. Should I localize my game? Yes. Next question, please. Oh, you want more details? Well, actually, whether or not you should localize your game depends on many factors and the answer can be different for any one game. But if I have to choose between yes and no, it's a yes. Why? Well, let's first take a look at the benefits and downsides of localization and then get back to this question. Let's start with the benefits. Localizing your game will increase the size of your potential customer pool, essentially making it more likely that your game will sell well. If we look at the Steam survey data on languages, we can see that only 39% of Steam users have English set as their main language. It's an important thing to consider as Steam's algorithm won't even offer your game to those that don't have one of the game's supported languages included in their own Steam languages. By supporting additional languages, you are increasing the potential visibility of your game on Steam. The second benefit of localization is that it will increase the player satisfaction, as many players will now be able to play the game with a language they are most comfortable using. Additionally, along with these two great benefits, there's also one additional benefit that can give a huge boost to the chance of your game being successful and selling thousands and thousands of copies. And that is that localizing your game will also increase the chance of your game going viral on Steam. Really? How does it do that? You might ask. Well, I'll get to that, but let's save that to the end of the video. Now that I have you all hyped up and ready to localize your game, let's talk about why you might not want to localize your game. So, why wouldn't you want to localize your game? Well, simply because it takes time and money. Also, from the technical point of view, if your game is almost ready and you're thinking about localizing it, it can be a real pain in the backside to get your game to support localization. It is not something you can just quickly paste to your game. Your game needs to be built to support localization. That said, it's not really that hard to have your game support localization. It just takes time. In my case, I released Mortal Glory without localization or any support for localization. After a successful launch, I decided I wanted to localize the game and started working on that. So it's definitely possible to modify your game to support localization even after your game is already finished. Like I said, it just takes time. So, how much time does it take? I kept track of my hours during development and overall I clocked 1,681 hours for the project. Out of these, 160 hours are for localization. So that's almost 10% of the whole project and equal to a full month of work if you break it down into normal 8-hour workdays. If you build your game from the start with localization in mind, it probably won't take this long, but it's still good to prepare for the possibility and likelihood that it's going to take time. In my case, maybe half of those hours were spent going through the whole game, changing every hard-coded string into a dynamic, localizable string, and then ensuring that the translations look good in the game. The other half was used for coordinating the translation work and adjusting the translations. Okay, so that's time as one of the downsides. What about the other? Localization takes money and can get very expensive depending on your game. How expensive? The prices can vary a lot based on the language pair of the translation, how complicated your text is, who you order the translation from, and most importantly, how many words your text has. You can use this site called ProC to check what the average rates per word are for translators. On average, it's somewhere around 10 cents per word for most languages. But you can get translations for a lot cheaper too. I found most of my translators through a site called Fiverr and ended up paying $2,575 in total to get my game translated to 9 languages. My game has around 15,000 words, so that rounds up to around 2 cents per word on average. I think most of the translations I got for that price were good quality, but there definitely were some lower quality ones that needed additional work from me and the translator. When you try to seek good deals, there's always a higher likelihood of getting someone who will just put your stuff into Google Translate and expect to get paid for it. So I would advise caution when choosing the translator and not always just going for the cheapest option. If you don't want to use money at all, there is also one other option that's available to some, and that is community translations. If your game has an active community, you could try and see if there are fans who would like to translate your game for free simply because they are excited to see the game in their own language. Okay, so money and time were the biggest downsides. Along with those, in some cases, one other downside could also be that playing your game in another language simply isn't as enjoyable as playing with the main language. Maybe your game is full of puns and cultural references that are impossible to localize, and the game experience simply falls flat if they are missing. For some games, that might be a big issue, but in most cases, I don't think it is. Some things are always lost in translation, and your message in the game might be altered, but many players will still enjoy playing it in their own language despite the flaws. So now that we have looked at the benefits and downsides of localization, let's get back to the main question. Should you localize your game? And let's rephrase it a bit to remove some subjectivity. Is it smart financially to localize your game? It's still hard to give a definite answer, but if you expect your game to sell well, even without localization, the answer is most likely yes. If you are not sure if your game will sell at all, the answer is maybe or it depends. You will need to consider how many words your game has and how easy your game would be to localize. How much money and time would it take to localize your game? How much would your expected sales have to increase to make up for the cost? Do you have a platformer with 500 words in total? That's an easy yes to localization. But if your game is a niche story-based game with hundreds of thousands of words, it might not be worthwhile to localize it. But generally, for your average indie game, I would say that if you intend to make money with it, it's probably worth localizing. In my case, localization was very much worth it despite all the hours I had to spend to enable it. The biggest impact for me was in the Asian region. Before localization, Asia accounted to just 4% of the sold units, but now it's 31%. I won't bother calculating what this means in dollars, but I can say that it's many times more than the $2,575 that I used for all the translations. Individually, all of the translations maybe weren't worth it, but that's a topic for another video. Earlier in the video I mentioned that localizing your game will also increase the chance of your game going viral on Steam. So what is that all about? I'll let you in on the secret. The new and trending tab on the front page of Steam is region specific, meaning that the games on that list are different based on which country you are looking at the list from. If you have a VPN, you can verify this for yourself. So, what does this mean in practice and how does it relate to localizing your game? Well, let's say for example that your game has Japanese localization and because of that, Japanese audience is interested in your game. When you release your game, it might be that in North American market your game is overtaken by many bigger popular releases and your game doesn't make it to the new and trending tab. But because Japanese players are buying your game, it might show up on the Japanese version of the new and trending tab and lead to an explosive sales growth in that region. Having your game localized for a specific market will give you a huge edge in that market against games that are not localized. So, localizing your game before release is essentially giving you more chances to win the popularity contest on Steam, and this contest comes with very real cash prizes, so it's worth participating. But hey, that's all I have for this video. I was thinking of dedicating my next video to talk about which languages you should localize to. And if you're interested, maybe after that I could give a brief glimpse to what the localization process looks like in practice. Let me know if those sound interesting topics to you. Okay, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.